Crypto is incredibly boring right now, and we need to use that time effectively so we can find projects like Mana before they blow up like they did in the last bull market. And in this video, I'm going to talk about 3 crypto projects that you need to be paying attention to right now, and also identify what it is that creates a successful investment project. Hit the like button. Let's get into it. Now, guys, this is really key. Look at Mana Decentraland in the last bull market. It literally did nothing for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and then suddenly something happened. Huge narrative exploded, and then within literally, this is a couple of weeks, maybe even less, it did 700%. This is potentially what you will see in some of the coins that people are talking about right now, but it's difficult to identify what they are until you understand what it is that makes a coin pump towards the upside like this. So looking into this very simple diagram, which I've managed to now figure out how to use this, which is a great tool, we have to identify potential winners. There's a number of different things that feed into a potential winner, and if you've gone across YouTube right now, then you've probably identified some of those projects. And one project we've seen having a huge amount of growth this year, while everything else is not doing a huge amount, is KASPA, where we can see from back in September of last year at least, so in the last year, we are now up 53 or 5,313%, obviously having a significant pullback over the last couple of weeks, which potentially we will continue to see. So what is it about KASPA and how does it fit into here? Well, we need to look at a few different aspects, because what you think might drive a project to become successful might be different from what really drives it. Now, what I've done is create these different circles in different colors, and the colored ones are kind of the more important aspects, and then the gray ones on the outside kind of add in a bit of the narrative and help perhaps build up these bits and pieces here. Now, the narrative is very important. Now, in the last bull market, we saw Mana Decentraland exploding on the narrative of the metaverse. The metaverse basically came into being, and people suddenly figured out what it was when Facebook changed its name to Meta. Metaverse then took off, and metaverse tokens, Gala, Mana Decentraland, and a few others absolutely exploded around that time. Sandbox was another. This got very exciting, and the narrative was very important in that particular area. Now, the next thing to pay attention to is simplicity. Now, there are some really interesting and exciting projects out there that are really, really technical, and I'm not a technical person, and I know a lot of people watching at home are not technical people either, and that's why, you know, sometimes we get less excited by a project that might sound to someone who's a bit techie very, very exciting and interesting, let's say Polkadot, than someone who's perhaps less techie. The reason Gala is a very exciting project for lots of people, apart from the narratives and all that stuff, is that it's simple. Lots of people understand gaming. They understand that maybe having a token for gaming might be a very useful and interesting thing. Therefore, it's easy for them to get behind a project that they can understand. Much more easy for them to get behind that project than something like Internet Computer, which is like canisters and smart contracts and all this jazzy stuff that might sound really exciting to a nerdy person, but also maybe sounds really boring and confusing to someone who's less excited by that. So simplicity is a very key factor. Then we have the popularity. Now, you would say that probably all of these things, like the narrative and the simplicity, feed into the popularity. For example, one of the most popular projects right now, you'd have to agree with me, would be hbar. The reason hbar might be so popular, because it has a great narrative. You know, it's layer 1. People like the idea of what it can do, loads of transactions, very exciting, much faster than all these other projects. And it also has the narrative of all these other like connections with different companies around the world, from finance, it's now moving into stuff to do with the Fed now, is loads of stuff that even if you're not necessarily the most technical, you can get behind and understand. That helps to build into the popularity, while the simplicity may not be quite there because it is a complex thing to understand. The X factor, you might say, for hbar would be the fact that it has all these crazy partnerships like EDF Energy, finance, etc. But we're not going to talk about hbar too much in this video, because actually we're going to focus on some other things. Now, one thing I want to point out as well that's very key, because lots of people tend to pull in this information to their narrative or whatever their argument is, and it's these other things like the tokenomics, like the team, like the news and the roadmaps and things coming up. These are kind of other factors that get considered but really don't have a huge amount of impact when considering the other things. The news and the roadmap events is out here for a very big reason, and I want you to consider that all this like narrative of, oh, well, this is going to happen later in the year for hbar, and this is going to happen for KASPA, and just you wait until this happens, doesn't mean anything, or it means something very small. It has an impact, but it's really very minor. And if you're just buying, anticipating boosts on news, unless we're talking about XRP, which gives you unexpected news, then, you know, if it's going to happen, and we know it's going to happen, don't buy into it for the news, guys, because it's already factored into the price. Simple. So these things together kind of excite us. The X factor could be something that kind of like encapsulates all of it. For example, with KASPA, we'll jump across and I'll talk about what the X factor might be. Well, KASPA is a layer 1. It works using something called a block DAG, which is a direct acyclic graph, which sounds very confusing, and perhaps if you're non-technical is confusing. It doesn't work like a normal blockchain going along a simple one-to-one block. It goes and works. It basically identifies different ways to send off different transactions rather than going through a chain, and therefore it's able to hold and handle much more in terms of volume of transactions. It can also identify different complexities in transactions and identify how to handle them best, basically giving it out to the team. Let's think of it like that. This particular concept is the X factor of KASPA because it was initially mentioned in the white paper for Ethereum, okay? Because the team around KASPA have been around for a long time, one of the most well-respected teams in crypto. This is what gives it its X factor. People like that. Got a nice name, and you know, it has therefore been able to captivate a lot of people. Also, this here is pretty much its X factor. This is what it should be on any website you look at. KASPA at a glance. KASPA is a community project, completely open source, no governance, following in the ethos of Bitcoin, Litecoin, Monero, blah, 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 and is basically launching without pre-mining or any other pre-allocations of coins. This is very key because as a crypto purist, of which I'm not, you know, these people like this kind of concept, open source, all these things, because it leads to the whole decentralized concept of what Satoshi Nakamoto first talked about in the white paper that he created for Bitcoin. That's very exciting and something that people can get behind. You can go down and find out all this key information, lots of information. I recommend going and learning more about what this project is. I think it's going to be one of the top performers this year, and that's why I have it where I do. Now, we do see that already this year, we've seen it having a good pump, where it's up from the original launch back here in October, currently sat around 8,700% up. That's an 87x. It's pretty big, okay? Does that mean that we can continue towards the upside? Well, absolutely. But let's have a look at the coin market cap, which is currently sat around $715 million. Now, what people might say and be kind of confused by with KASPA and whatever is they'll be like, oh, well, it's as good as like Ethereum that did this many percent in the last bull market or its first bull market or whatever it is, or better. But you have to imagine, guys, it's already done an 87x up to 700 mil. So to go to 7 billion is a 10x. To go to 70 billion, we're talking 100x, but guys, 70 billion is a massive amount of money. So it changes things because we've already seen a good portion of this growth. I'm not saying that we're not going to continue to see growth, but I do think that right now on the sort of shorter term charts, we're looking at a fairly bearish structure in that we've had this shoulder, this head, and this shoulder. And I do think that KASPA could be due a further pullback, which would be the height of this head and shoulders pattern from that breakout area that you can see there. And that would bring us back down nicely into the buy zone that you can identify clearly here with having big growth out of this area. So potentially if we see KASPA getting back down to around 21 cents, which from current levels would be a pullback of another 40%. And guys, I know people are going to get really sad about that. But remember, KASPA ticks a lot of boxes here. And if it does pull back 42%, then you've got a fantastic opportunity. It might not. That's just what I'm looking at, what I'm waiting for, because that will be a very good thing. On to the next project, which is very key. Now, there are other projects that could fit really nicely into this, but you know, I'm just keeping it interesting, a bit of variety, so we're not just talking about the same things all the time. Games for a living, you've probably seen being talked about quite a lot. Now, I like this project because, like we saw in the last bull market with the likes of Gala Gaming and various others exploding, I think we're going to see that again. Gaming is one of the narratives that is almost certain, in my opinion, to be exploding towards the upside. We've seen Alex Becker talk about this, and we've seen other people saying that if there's any area of the market that can decouple from Bitcoin and the rest of crypto, it is going to be gaming and GameFi. And the reason for that is gaming and GameFi operates completely separately, really, from crypto, in that it doesn't need the crypto bull market to drive full success. You've only got to have a couple of big games really start to take off, like the likes of Axie Infinity and whatever, and you're going to see all of those GameFi tokens being dragged along with it. And what I like about games for a living, similar to what I like about Gala, is it basically runs a number of different games, okay? Lots of different games and things going on, and various other features within here. You can see there's a lot of variety of different games that are going to be constantly launching games into the future. That's very key, because if one game doesn't do so well, then they have a good chance of another game doing particularly well. And where Gala is a really exciting project still, in my opinion, despite what people think about the tokenomics, because remember, tokenomics is kind of a gray area of discussion. It does have an impact, but ultimately, this stuff will always drive it beyond whether or not you think the circulating supply sucks or whatever. Games for a living currently sits here with a market cap around $11 million. That for me is a very exciting thing. Okay, we've got a good project, good team, it's exciting, people are starting to get behind it. Remember, people can easily understand it because it's a company that sells games, and if people start to play those games and they want to use those tokens to play the games, then it's a very good thing. Circulating supply, very low down, and yes, circulating supply is important. It comes under tokenomics, people will talk about it, but actually in the short term, if we get a really explosive move like we did in Mana Decentraland or something that tips gaming into the kind of limelight, then you can see 7 million turning a 10x into 70 million very quickly. 70 million in terms of crypto, particularly in bull markets, is nothing. I do think that we could see games for a living really spiking way beyond that, and it's a bit of a no-brainer in my opinion, but obviously do your own research. Don't go and buy it without understanding what it is. All crypto is risky, of course. On to the last one today, and that is Verasity. Now, I've talked about Verasity before on this channel, and people do appear to be very interested in it. And I'm not just talking about it because I want you to watch my videos because you're interested in those projects, although that is a very big part of this, okay? The popularity part is people watching videos. So you're probably wondering, well, why am I constantly getting badgered with like videos about hbar and videos about Cardano and videos about whatever it is? It's because the popularity is there for those tokens, which means that people want to watch more of those videos, which means that those are more likely to perform well, despite, maybe being a bit weaker in some other areas, okay? So what is it do I like about Verasity? Well, it's popular. It's got that popularity thing, and probably because it's simple in that people can understand what it's for. Again, it slots nicely into the GameFi narrative, and that's very important. Now, something else that I like about the narrative, obviously we've got the GameFi aspect, but also that kind of like fraud detection thing for ads is a huge deal. Companies like YouTube, companies like Google, same company I guess, Instagram, Facebook, whatever they are, they all run ads. That's how they make money. It's how I make money, okay? And this is very important, that basically the advertisers continue to get the quality they want. Because if someone wants to advertise on a video that I'm making or YouTube is making, then they want to make sure that that person's getting value for their money. They're not going to spend thousands of dollars on advertising if it's just getting loads of bots and stuff watching it. And that's a very key thing. If we can see Verasity moving into that space and starting to take hold and become the go-to name for that, then guys, that's going to be a massive catalyst to drive this project forward. And that is its huge X factor, and something that has me excited. In terms of all the other features here, it looks very good. And again, what I like, Verasity got a market cap here around $43 million. In the past, we've seen Verasity absolutely exploding towards the upside. And I do think, given looking at this chart here, which you can see is a bit of a way off where we could be, that in the last bull market, we were all the way up at this point here. You can see back to the all-time highs. You're looking at 20x already. I think Verasity even then was going off of a narrative that it didn't really deliver on. If it starts to deliver on that narrative, very exciting things to come. And if you're wondering where to hold a coin like Verasity, well guys, I recommend going and getting yourself a decent wallet, which is this. It works with a fingerprint scanner and it connects to your iPhone or whatever it is via Bluetooth, which is very cool because you don't need any wires. You don't need to connect it to a laptop if you just want to use it with a phone. It supports over 2,000 coins, and if you go through the link down below in the description, you will get yourself a discount. One of the top wallets out there, really easy to use, highly recommended. Guys, if you enjoyed that video, please do me a favor, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel and you want to find out new coins that I'm buying and all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the very next video. Bye-bye.